In a way, we could call multimedia advocacy multimedia self-advocacy, because it's all about that piece where people talk for themselves, express themselves, have a voice. Back in 2005, David Test reviewed all the literature around self-advocacy and came out with some crucial conclusions which we found really useful at the RICS. Firstly, he's affirmed that self-advocacy skills are crucial to the successful transition of students with disabilities into adult life. Secondly, David Test's review of the literature affirmed that self-advocacy skills do not come naturally. People need instruction in acquiring them. Usefully, he went on to identify 4 crucial stages in the acquisition of self-advocacy skills and confidence. Step 1 is knowledge of self. Step 2 is knowledge of rights. Step 3 is the communication of your knowledge of self and of rights. And step 4 in the development of self-advocacy is leadership. So we're going to use David Test's Pathways Towards Self-Advocacy as a sort of framework on which to unpack and examine multimedia advocacy and look at examples of it at work. So let's start with step 1 of the road to self-advocacy, knowledge of self. It's a tricky one, that, particularly if you've grown up being supported. The whole idea of self, the concept of selfhood, if you like, is a more complex issue if you have a disability than perhaps it is for the rest of us. For everyone nowadays, and especially young people, the idea of self is very much wrapped up in self-image. Media and entertainment industries bombard us with pictures of ideal people, beautiful people. And there's a whole industry, of course, wrapped up in giving us the tools to make ourselves look like our idols. So in this sort of climate of self-image, we really have to consider, I think, the need to work with people with learning disabilities around this knowledge of self issue that is the first step identified towards self-advocacy. So if we're going to work with people with learning disabilities around knowledge of self, and if we're working in a world where self-image is really crucial, then photography is a great tool. We can use photography and making self-portraits as a way to enter into conversations and dialogue with people with learning disabilities about how they like to look, the way they like to be seen. So maybe there's a new type of self-advocacy that's called selfie advocacy. We've been trying that out with digital photography and my new selfie advocacy stick. I want to talk about selfies a little bit more. You know, in 2013, the Oxford Dictionaries identified selfie as the word of the year. It was second only to twerking. There was a comedian in America who said, in a related news item, the funeral of the English language is to be held next Thursday. But joking apart, selfies are a major feature of today's experience, aren't they? They're everywhere. What's that about? Well, it's about us living in a multimedia world, isn't it? It's about our children growing up, being used to pictures of themselves, doing this, doing that, doing the other, doing everything. My daughter is tagged in over 2,500 different pictures on Facebook. What's that about? Well, it's about people living in a kind of mediated world where self-image is very much part of the way you express yourself, the way you kind of perform your identity. Okay, you get the picture. I think it's an opportunity for us working with people with a learning disability, using cameras and actually experimenting with the ways in which we might like to look. It's a new way for us to work, isn't it? It's a different type of support, but it's fun as well. I'm particularly interested in the way in which a photo shoot can become a conversation, an opportunity to bring to the surface people's thoughts about themselves, people's wishes and desires about the way they'd like to be seen, and in a way, the type of person they'd like to be. Now that's exactly what we're working on, isn't it, when we're doing person-centred work with the people we support. So there you go. Already multimedia advocacy in action, providing us with new ways of working, different ways of working, and ways of working that link in to this step-by-step approach towards achieving a voice, towards becoming a self-advocate. So getting started with multimedia advocacy will often involve doing self-portraits, taking pictures of ourselves, looking at them and discussing the way we like to be seen, what's important to us, the things that are important to us, the people that are important to us, and the places that are important to us. It's an interesting way to work, a different way to have those conversations and to find out about people and to help them bring to the surface their thoughts and feelings and their goals and ambitions. By working with photography, we also have opportunities for role play. So when we're doing our photo session, we can think about it as being a shoot. We can think about styling. We can think about props. We can think about different camera angles or facial expressions. And we can change the lighting. Our modern selfie expression isn't that new. I mean, back in Victorian times, at the invention of photography, the carte de visite was the thing. That was the studio photo that rich people used to have taken of them with their dogs, with their props, in the special sets, looking theatrical, all part of celebrating their individualism, their self-image, and so on. So times change, but actually the same rules maybe apply. But I think there's a different kind of pitch to it nowadays, isn't it? A really intensive aspect to growing up in our culture is that self-image thing. And I think whatever we think about it, it's really important that we give younger people with learning disabilities the opportunity to play with these tools, to play with their self-image, to perform these identities. It's a nice way to work, it's a different way to work, and actually I think it opens doors. So around knowledge of self, we maybe do start with this selfie advocacy idea, self-portraiture, pictures of me, but also pictures about me, and that's really crucial. You can learn a lot just having a conversation with somebody over their photo album, can't you? You find out about their family, about their history, about the places in their lives, and so on. We take that further with multimedia advocacy and use the same sort of framework that might be applied around person-centred work generally, and work more broadly, building up portfolios with the individuals about themselves, pictures of themselves, yes, but pictures about themselves. Pictures that ask the question, what's important to you, what's important for you? What do you like? What don't you like? How do you like to be supported? What are your goals? These are all questions we know about when we work on person-centred plans or support people in person-centred ways. Multimedia comes into play, gives us extra tools, different ways of working, accessible ways of working with people that can explore these old questions in new ways.